I was just listening to a video on Instagram by Tyler Ugalde, and he was explaining non-duality. And if he's talking about the same thing, which I think he is, it's known as Advaita from Vedanta, which basically is something from, it might be Sanskrit from India. Sorry, everyone's being bothered by my hair. I don't know what to do. And I was really focusing in on Tyler's talk. And what I noticed, first of all, was he was doing it live. He was doing a live video. And this whole bottom part of the screen where my finger is was full of all the comments of his viewers. And Tyler had one of those writing boards, with the soft marker. Look at this mess up here. Look at this mess. And so Tyler was trying to go and give us the display, and his message board was also down here. So I couldn't really read what he was showing on his whiteboard. That's the name of it. Because all of the comments were also here. So Tyler, if you're watching this, what you need to do is hold your whiteboard way up here so that the people's comments fall below it and we can see what you're saying. Now, my other criticism of Tyler is he has the same problem that I do, and that is he's too long-winded. Tyler, you're never going to be able to stop when you need to stop unless you do your video and then, I don't know, put it onto. I don't think you can do it very. I mean, there's literally video editing programs that I sometimes use on my smartphone, but I think if you used it went on a desktop computer with a big keyboard and lots of room, it's just way easier to do video editing, and you could edit it. I don't do much editing because I do everything on the smartphone. Sometimes what I use with the video editor is I stick a few videos together, and sometimes some still shots and whatever. But my desktop computer takes 15 minutes to load up. It's an old Microsoft Windows. And, usually I do this on the fly. I do a lot of uploads on Wi-Fi when I'm not at home near my. So I don't. But Tyler, if you're listening, thank you. You gave us a very great lecture. It was the best lecture I have ever heard on non-duality. I've seen the word a zillion times, and to tell you the truth, I could never understand what it meant. Never, 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 never. And this is the first lecture where someone is definitely, I think he's got it. I really think he's got it. And like I said, the only issue is he's too long-winded. He got the point across good enough that I was sort of like, yeah. But then he kept talking and talking and talking, and then I forgot. I kind of forgot, the point. He got to the point. He should have just stuck the point right there. Stick it. Just stick it. It's like a gymnast, they're coming off of the balance beam and they do a flip in the air and then they land on their feet and they stick it and they get a perfect 10 out of 10 in the Olympics and they win the gold medal. I think it was Nadia Comaneci way back when. She got perfect 10s, and he would have got a perfect 10, but he didn't stick the landing. He kept yip, 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 yip. And then I lost the point, and I do that. I know because sometimes people comment and say that I am too long-winded, and am I too long-winded already? No, I haven't even explained to you what I think Tyler was telling us about non-duality. Non-duality has something to do with the Buddhist idea of enlightenment or the Hindu idea of moksha. Now, if you've watched my channels, you know that quite frequently I refer to the scale of human consciousness. The scale of human consciousness is a logarithmic scale that runs from 1 to 1,000. 1 is the consciousness of an amoeba. 1,000 is the consciousness of Buddha. On the scale, enlightenment happens at about 700 and above. Unconditional love is 540 on the scale. I've given you too many numbers already. Just remember that really high on the scale of human consciousness is where enlightenment happens. And this is where non-duality happens. I think. He didn't say this, but I'm reading in between the lines and I'm putting it together with everything else that I've read. And caveat emptor, I mean, I might be wrong, but I think it's right. If I was a betting man, I would bet $6.56 that I'm right. And what Tyler was saying is humans are basically dual personalities. We are dual personalities. It's not basic. We are. In other words, there is me and there is you. Or there is me and then there is everything outside of me, like, in the room or whatever. So it's dual. There's two, me and you, or me and everything else outside of me. Outside of, most people would say outside of my body. I don't look at it that way. I look at it as I am the thing that is aware of everything else. So I am what is aware of everything, and everything else is what I'm aware of. So that's two things. So that's essentially what Tyler was saying in his video. And I think what, I'm reading between the lines here, and if I've got it right, when you reach 700 on the scale of human consciousness, way up there at higher consciousness, at 700, enlightenment, you have a breakdown of me and you, or me and everything else out there, or my awareness of everything, including my body and everything that I see through my body. There's a breakthrough. And I believe that at 700 and above, something happens where, because sometimes you see it written, the seer becomes the seen. So there is a merging of the two things, the two aspects, into one thing. And that is enlightenment. And that is non-duality. And that is that Advaita word from Vedanta. Okay, I just landed, okay? I just landed. I did my flip. I just landed. Now, pause the video for a second and give yourself a few seconds to absorb all this. And then I'm going to do some questions. Do 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 do. Okay, I'm assuming you're back, and make sure you bookmark this. Send this to yourself in an email because sometime later you might need this. Okay, so now I've got questions, and I've got my friend King Clancy, who asked the first question: is enlightenment the same thing as Christ consciousness? I think so. Dr. David R. Hawkins of Consciousness Research said in his books that 1000, that I already told you, was the consciousness of Buddha, the real Buddha, the first person that was enlightened, according to Buddhists, calibrated at 1000 on the scale of human consciousness, and he gave some other names of other beings who were also at 1000, and one of them was Jesus the Christ. So, the alternative answer is Dr. Hawkins, in one of his lectures, said Buddha is the way to enlightenment, and Jesus is the way of salvation. I don't know what salvation means. I don't know. I don't understand it. I think maybe I remembered something now. Salvation is having Jesus as your intercessor between you and his God, or his God the Father. So if you're worried about needing somebody to stand up for you, maybe when you drop dead, so that you can, have somebody to stand up for you, then if you call on Jesus the Christ, he will stand for you and be your friend. So I believe that's salvation. I think what Jesus is going to say is what he's quoted as saying in the Bible when he was hung on the cross, and that is, forgive this person because they didn't know what they were doing. Is it true? Do you know what you're doing? Maybe we'll come back to that in another lecture. Okay, next question from King Clancy. I have to listen. And Clancy is asking the question, why do we need to go to higher consciousness? In other words, if I'm at a lower state of consciousness and I can call on Jesus, why do I need to raise my vibration, raise my consciousness up on the scale of human consciousness? The answer is primarily, he got it. It's to evolve your consciousness. So some commentators have said that it is extremely rare to have the opportunity to incarnate in a human body. Very, very, very rare. And once you're in a human body, it's even rarer to hear the word enlightenment in a Buddhist sense, and even rarer to pursue it. But some other commentators say consciousness here on planet Earth starts off perhaps as an amoeba or a plant life, and then it after that's dead, then it reincarnates over and over again in these lower forms, and then perhaps it incarnates as a frog, and then maybe as a rat, and progressively moves up. Some people will debate this. I've heard some people say, like, a deer is always a deer, always a deer. It's a group soul, and it's the group soul always incarnates as a deer, and a deer never progresses. But I've heard other people say, Eliza Maida Dalian say she remembers her past lives. She was given the opportunity to visit her past lives in her mind, and she saw herself as a jaguar, for example. So if you follow her, then you are progressively incarnating into higher and higher forms until you get into the form of a human, where you can act like an animal. You can act like what's known as a householder. In other words, have a family, a house, and have a 9-to-5 job. Or you can pursue enlightenment, which is basically you raising your vibration, also known as going to higher consciousness. So that is, I forget what the exact question Clancy asked was, but in essence, it is up to you. Once you were in a human form, I mean, it took a lot of incarnations for you to even get the chance to come into a human body. And you're saying, well, there's 7 billion people on the planet. Yes, but how many insects are on this planet? How many little tiny fish are in the ocean? All of them are all little beings, and there's way more of them than there are human bodies. And do you know of a mosquito that is enlightened? You got to have this part of your brain, this front part of your brain, the frontal cortex, in order to become really intelligent, to become self-aware. So a human has more awareness, more consciousness than, for example, a dog. So that's the benefit of you getting into a human body. You have the opportunity, because now you've heard about enlightenment and you've heard about all these things I've talked to you about. What happens if you don't pursue enlightenment now that you've heard of it? Well, Dr. Hawkins said the average human doesn't pursue enlightenment. The average human doesn't try to raise their vibration. And the average human in one lifetime goes up on the scale of consciousness by 4 points. So if you're going to go, you're going to have to incarnate over and over and over and over, reincarnate and reincarnate 4 points at a time until you get, I don't know how far you're going to go up this way, but yeah, that's all you're going to get. Dr. Hawkins said 4 points. And you get to keep it. In other words, if you raise your consciousness to whatever number, that, let's call it your soul, the ongoing thing that reincarnates, gets to keep as far as you got. Maxed out, it's yours to keep. Except, maybe it's not quite true, because Dr. Hawkins gave a famous talk, famous to me, where he talked about the fall of the Prophet Muhammad. Muhammad had a very high consciousness at one point early in his career. And then Dr. Hawkins attributed it to something like epilepsy. Dr. Hawkins was a psychiatrist, and he said Muhammad's consciousness had a great fall. It was like Humpty Dumpty, and he didn't put himself back together again. And primarily, it was over this jihad. We've all heard of that term, Islamic jihad, and this was the issue with Muhammad. In other words, as Dr. Hawkins said, as I recall, it was taking up the sword in order to slay infidels. going around killing everyone in the name of Islam is a very low consciousness, super low. So that's what he explained happened to Muhammad. I never ever looked it up. Did Muhammad actually say slay the infidels, or it was his followers? Dr. Hawkins said it was Muhammad. I don't know. I'm not an Islamic scholar, but this is the story I'm relaying for you. So according to this story, if Muhammad could drop from very high states down to negative states, perhaps so can you. So what do you have to watch out for? It didn't sound fair. I mean, if Muhammad got epilepsy or something and got disease and then his consciousness fell, perhaps his soul retained it. Somewhere else I read that if, for example, you are in the aura of a spiritual teacher, a bona fide, real spiritual teacher, a real guru, not some bullshit thing, your aura will pick up the high vibration of the teacher. And that will stay with you, but you won't realize that is your own vibration, but it will somehow, because you were exposed to it, it will help you. It's more useful to sit in physical space with a bona fide spiritual master than it is to just watch that person talk to you on YouTube, for example, or on television, because you get the benefit of the aura of the teacher if they're a real bona fide enlightened being. And I'm going to say that in your next incarnation, as a new person and a new ego personality, if your new ego personality is not like the one you have right now, why wouldn't it be the same? It's the same soul. It'll be the same soul, your soul it is now. The personalities that we develop are a mask. They are a covering for the soul that you have. We call them egos. And how do egos come about? Primarily through what's known in psychology as conditioning, which primarily comes about from your upbringing. So your parents, the neighborhood you grow up in, your teachers, your school, your playmates, the video games you watch or play, the television, the Netflix, whatever that you watch, all the interactions you have, and that's how you develop an ego. So your next incarnation, depending on what your situation is, it's quite likely you're going to have some differences in your personality from what you have now. Someone who is heavily into astrology would probably say a lot of the traits that you carry have to do with the date and time that you're born. Is it true? Well, some of the bona fide spiritual masters, such as Sri Yukteswar, who was one of the well, I guess he was the guru of Paramahansa Yogananda, was heavily into astrology. And so that's what they would say. Do I know what's true? I can only pass on to you what I know, and I am not Sri Yukteswar, and I am not Paramahansa Yogananda. I am someone who is a spiritual student dedicated. It doesn't mean I'm perfect, but it means compared to the average Joe on the street, I know way more. I'm sorry. Some people would say, you're an idiot. I give you the finger. Seriously. Either you're on the path or you're not. If you disagree with me, it's your loss, not mine. The advantage of having higher consciousness, number one. Sri Yukteswar, the guru of Paramahansa Yogananda, said if you get to a higher consciousness by sincerely pursuing higher consciousness, people like Sri Yukteswar have other worlds where you can go for your next lifetime. In other words, you don't have to come back to the shit show of planet Earth. It's going to be a place where sincere seekers can go to continue their studies without all of the... I don't know. It sounded good to me. He never explained, what the ups and downs of it are, but it's definitely a place where sincere seekers can go. And he's not the only one that's talked about this. If you've ever heard of Pure Land Buddhism, it's the same idea. You're pursuing Buddhist enlightenment, and on the way to get there, if you don't reach enlightenment in this lifetime, if you are a sincere seeker, you can go to a Pure Land kind of place in the afterlife. I'm not sure if you incarnate there or not, but it is a place where you can continue your studies, and it's not the shit show of planet Earth. Why is planet Earth a shit show? It just is. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows it. Dr. Hawkins of Consciousness Research said that Earth is a purgatorial realm. It's purgatory, and if you're Roman Catholic, you'll know what that means. If you're not, you're going to have to look it up. But it's basically a place where people with low vibrations come for a chance to raise their vibration. And it's a place where other people who are householder type of people, I remember I told you basically, you call them, like generally good people, rational people come to have another lifetime as a householder. And it is a place where bodhisattvas might, I'm not sure, maybe they would incarnate as human, or maybe they're just around, but bodhisattvas are enlightened beings that are here to help people who are pursuing enlightenment. So, if you have the choice after you drop dead to go to Pure Land Buddhism or to Sri Yukteswar's place or come back to Earth, what should you do? If you are following Tibetan Buddhism, this is a huge issue. A huge issue, because there is a big problem with reincarnation, according to Tibetan Buddhists. If you don't pick the right choice after you drop dead, you might reincarnate as a duck. How many of you are going to say, well, I wouldn't mind a lifetime as a duck? No, not a good idea. Because ducks cannot become enlightened, so you cannot advance your consciousness as a duck. After you came from human, going backwards to duck, don't do it. So, if you are very worried about this, then you should read about what you should do, the short answer is, according to some of the books I read, if you drop dead, follow the clear light, not the white light, and don't go into swampy places where ducks might inhabit, and don't go into sexual orgy places. Sexual orgy places, not good for reincarnation. What about if you enjoy sexy orgy places when you're human now? Osho, the spiritual teacher Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, had a commune in Oregon State, USA. And his Sannisins, his followers, the people who were following him, were told, okay, this is a place where you get to burn out your sex drive. So go mate like you are little rabbits until you get sick of having sex with other people. That was his advice. Burn out your sex drive by getting bored with it. So, I'm not Osho. I have no idea, but I'm giving you the information from a bunch of different sources because I read a bunch of sources. So you're getting the benefit of all my reading in this video. So if you're watching this video and you're here at this point, you're better off than billions of other people on the planet who never heard of Dr. Hawkins, never heard of enlightenment, never heard of any of this other stuff I'm telling you. And this book, if you're a computer techie kind of person, this book, Autobiography of a Yogi, was given to every person who attended computer guru Steve Jobs' funeral. Steve Jobs said he read this book basically every year or two over and over again. Favorite book. So, if you think somehow that billionaire founder of Apple Computer Steve Jobs was doing something right, you better listen to me, buddy, because I've read this book and a whole pile more. Am I a spiritual teacher? I'm a student. So, at university, you'd call me a TA or a teaching assistant. I'm here to be your teaching assistant. I am not the professor. Sri Yukteswar is the professor, and is Yogananda teacher? I don't know. He wrote about Yukteswar and a bunch of other things. A lot of people, I think, considered him a teacher. I never met the man. He was dead before I was born. But Dr. Hawkins, who I often talk about, is also dead. So who are you going to go to? Osho is dead. Who are the living masters? I don't know of any living masters anymore. I always liked Ramana Maharshi, but he's not in the physical anymore. And some of the other ones from India are not in the physical. They don't have bodies anymore. And these were the ones that were always said to be the enlightened masters. In one of his books, Dr. Hawkins said at any one time there's only about 6 real enlightened sages on planet Earth at any one time. I'm not one of them. And who are the 6 now? I don't know. But be very, very wary of people who go around calling themselves bona fide spiritual masters, because most of them will suck you in. And what if they've got spiritual powers? In other words, what if they can use like telepathy on you, talk to you in your head? Does that make them a bona fide spiritual master? No, What if they can levitate? Nope. What if they can manifest a $100 bill out of thin air and put it in your hand? Nope. Is David Copperfield the magician? Is he an enlightened being? I don't know. I wouldn't trust him to be so. Dr. Hawkins said that these Siddhi powers, S-I-D-D-H-I powers, the supernatural spiritual powers, are actually a trap. You're a spiritual trap, and he said, avoid them. It's going to be hard for you to avoid them, because if all of a sudden you were gifted with telepathy or something, Dr. Hawkins said he experienced these Siddhi powers sometimes, and he said the key to it is to remember, don't take it to be your personal thing. In other words, if you start experiencing weird deja vus and synchronicities and astral travel, if someone says, oh, I can do astral projection, that's not enlightenment. He said the astral realm is a huge spiritual trap. So don't waste too much time playing with these things. I mean, it might happen spontaneously, but Dr. Hawkins said the trap is saying, this is mine. My ability to do telepathy, telekinesis, levitation, all of these different things. If you look up Siddhi powers, he said, if it happens to you, it's the field that you're in. It's not your field. So don't say it belongs to me and I've got Siddhi powers. If they're happening, don't say they're yours. It's very egoic to say they're yours. They're just things that happen. Okay. So, in essence, what should you do? Meditate. 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 Should you read a lot of spiritual texts and follow a bunch of different people? I did. But maybe you're not much of a reader. Maybe you don't like listening to, for example, Sadhguru. There's a person going by the name of Sadhguru who's been on the internet for quite a while and on YouTube. Is Sadhguru a bona fide spiritual master? I don't know. Is he a good teacher? I'm going to say probably decent. Probably decent. Should you go spend a lot of money and go and see Sadhguru? How much money have you got? Dr. Hawkins said that compared to past generations, previous generations, there is way more information available, spiritual information, than there was in the past. And with the internet, it's even more easily available. So he said, and plus there's been more people who have, the more people who go to higher states of consciousness, higher on the scale of human consciousness, the easier it is for everyone else to rise in consciousness. He called this phenomenon entrainment. And if you are therefore in the presence of someone with a higher vibration, and as long as they don't lower their vibration to meet you at a lower level, you will tend to be entrained into higher consciousness while that person is around. So it's a good thing. The warning is, there are plenty of things that will entrain you into lower consciousness, lower vibrations. Rap music was the one Dr. Hawkins said will lower your consciousness. Maybe there's other kinds of music as well. Things to do with boom, 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 let's go back to my room. Because they're encouraging you to go to the club, get stinking drunk, and pick up someone and have your way with them or something, and then do it all over again tomorrow or next weekend. So if you're going to entrain with someone, try entraining to Autobiography of a Yogi. It's easy to read. If you're worried that this is a difficult book, This book, I would say someone in grade 6 could read. It's very easy to read. So, what are the books? If you read some Dr. Hawkins books, Transcending the Levels of Consciousness. If there's only one book you want from David Hawkins, Transcending the Levels of Consciousness. And you can go on YouTube and look him up, Dr. David R. Hawkins, and there's all kinds of his videos, so you can watch his videos if you like watching rather than reading. Ramana Maharshi, don't read his stuff. Don't read his stuff. He didn't. I think it was all translated into English, and when I read it, I get confused. So if you, a better thing to do is have a picture of Ramana Maharshi. You could go onto the internet and get a picture of Ramana Maharshi, print it out on a printer, and hang it in your bedroom. And anytime you want to get entrained to higher consciousness because you just need a boost, look at the picture of Ramana Maharshi, a picture of him in the physical when he was alive. What will that do? Somehow it will help you. Is it as good as reading this book? Well, if you look at this picture of Yogananda, you'll get a similar effect. In other words, if you look at the picture of the teacher, it tends to connect you up and train you with the teacher. Strangely, when I was talking to the Ascended Master Sananda, who I talked to through a trance channel, a person would close their eyes and go into a deep meditation, and Sananda, the Ascended Master, the spirit of Sananda, came through into the body and talked to me and some other students. And Sananda said, if you take books like this and put them, he said, under your pillow when you go to bed, it will help you. So that's something you could do. Is it true? I think so. I got some library books the other day and I put them in my room, not under my pillow, but they're just in my room. And I had some dreams that I say somehow my dreams are somehow related to one of the books that I got out of the library. And I never read the book. It's just like the cover of the book's all I've seen. It's sitting in my room. And I just have a strong intuition that something in that book is related to some dream. And I can't explain the dream. I don't understand it at this point. But to me, it's proof that if you've got books in your vicinity, even if you haven't read them, somehow, by osmosis, this kind of stuff will get into your consciousness. So, should you have books like Edgar Allan Poe? Do you know Edgar Allan Poe? He was the famous writer of, one of the early writers of scary horror stories. His famous poem story is The Raven. Should you have that around with you? If you're a serious spiritual student, should you have a copy of it? Edgar Allan Poe. When did I get this book? When I was, 12 years old. It was a gift. When was the last time I read it? When I was about 12 years old. But it's still here. Is this going to entrain me? Some odd times I am given to glance at my books. These are just some of my books, and you can see I have got the little book of Ramana Maharshi. That's him right there. And the book is called Thus Spake Ramana. I'm sorry for all this. But that is him, and he is here. It's a little tiny thin book. But he goes up here, and this little fellow here, I don't know exactly who this is, but to me, he represents like Ascended Master Lanto or Lao Tzu. And, I got all these books here. This is just one small group of books. And sometimes what happens is if I'm sitting here on the couch, my eye will be directed to one of these books up on the bookshelf over here. And it hasn't been directed to go to Edgar Allan Poe's book, but many other books. And sometimes I get up off the couch and I walk over and I pick up that book and turn to a page at random because my intuition says there's something there for me to look at. So, if you are a serious spiritual student, you don't need to throw away all of your old books that are not spiritual. Someone wants to know why. Well, I wasn't given to throw it away or gift it to someone. In other words, I wasn't told by my intuition to throw it in the garbage. My intuition has told me to throw, I can think of at least one book into the garbage. It didn't resonate with me. It was supposed to be a spiritual book, and I read a fair bit of it. It was an expensive book. It probably cost me $15 or $20. It didn't resonate with me. In other words, I read it and I didn't like it, what it was saying. I didn't like it.